Right, okay, so this one is the one I talked about on the previous video. Was it the previous video? Might be the previous before video, possibly. There was one where I was talking about a hospital environment. So it's in the surgery series. As I said, I think it is the second video. I was talking about a supermarket scenario. And then I remember at the time thinking, oh, that's weird. Yeah, I've been meaning to do one that's this one that's got zombies in it, and I'm going to call it Fresh Meat. And I was going to actually film it a lot earlier in this season because I was going to try and put it in with others that were to do with anything to do with zombies and vampires and that kind of stuff. I was going to try and draw it all together. But in the end, I had a real feeling of not doing that one actually, and then just reserving that one back and moving in a different direction. So I've never known really where to come back. And there's an element of this video being that happens twice. In that, I'm going to continue now from obviously that one where I'm talking about the supermarket. So we're going to go into the supermarket. Something very similar sort of happens as to what I described. And then in the surgery one, I mean. And then I'm going to take us in a direction where I had I wouldn't have said extra revelation, to be honest, but I'm going to go into Mark of the Beast as well afterwards. And this is purely because after I shot my initial video in season 1 where I did Mark of the Beast, I did some visuals. I held up some pictures of what the mark actually looked like in my dream. Okay, so I'm not saying this is what the mark would look like. I'm not even saying it's a physical mark necessarily. I'm just saying this is what represented the Mark of the Beast came in here as. So I'm going to show you that, and I'm actually going to show you the images that I found after shooting that video. I kind of drew some images, and I'm also going to relate it back to, if you watch that one, as I said, it's called Mark of the Beast. It's in season 1. I will link it in, but I did mention about how I thought it really looked similar to a film I've seen years and years and years ago, hadn't seen in tons of years, and it looked very, very similar. Well, I actually managed to find the film and got it to the scene that I was thinking of, and then I took a picture. So I won't be showing a clip. Instead, I'll just be showing just a still picture of what it looked like, and then you can obviously find it. I did mention, I think, in that Mark of the Beast video, how difficult it is to find anything online that shows what I'll show you, and so I had to find the film and then get it to that scene and then just take a picture. But it's identical. It says identical as you can possibly get. But as I said, I hadn't watched that film in over a decade. Must be well over a decade, I would think. It's got to be certainly close to that. Right, anyway. So I'm going to go through this one. As I said, we're starting this one, which is going to be Fresh Meat, and then we'll move on to that Mark of the Beast. Okay, so this was just one dream here out of several dreams. Yeah, because I've actually, the second dream was way, way, way bigger, and I've already, a second and third dream, in fact, actually, and I split up the night's dreams. Yeah, it looks like in a couple of different videos. Yeah, I did. Okay, right. So, and it was quite early on. It's like my first 5 sort of videos. This came up, and I was going to do it, but decided not to. Anyway, so you'll see if you watch that second video on the surgery series, you'll see the similarities here when I'm talking about the supermarket. It's incredibly similar. So I dropped into this dream where I was walking through our. It's not really a supermarket I go to, but walking through the supermarket that's in our town centre. I was just walking through the car park sort of area, and this was. What it didn't show me was me parking up the car, I suppose, in the car park. I didn't see that bit. I just was dropped into walking through the car park to the actual supermarket. So I went in just to do a standard food shop. So I was in the supermarket just getting all my normal bits and pieces to eat. And then I was, where you got the conveyor belt bit and you're putting all your stuff on, putting all my stuff on. And I noticed as I was looking around, there's loads of people queuing up to get food. It was a really, really busy one. Really busy time to obviously be in there. And when I'd gone, I was going into, when I was in the car park, when I was in the actual supermarket, everything was completely normal. But I paid up, took my shopping, and as soon as I left the supermarket, everything seemed to have changed. It was just in a brief moment of time, somehow something had changed. And as I left, as I said, things had happened that I couldn't really understand. Because as I was walking through the car park, I was walking through, and there was quite a lot of people just sort of standing around a little bit in the car park. And as I was walking towards my car, which was quite a bit of a distance, I was noticing people changing direction. So they might be walking with their backs to me, let's say, wandering up, and then they get a sense of me, and then they kind of change direction, and then start maybe facing me and walking. So changing direction completely. And yeah, and I was thinking, how weird it was. Everyone was just sort of suddenly turning on me and coming towards me like this, and reaching out for me. So those that were close enough were then lunging at me to try and get me. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? And as I said, it seemed like somewhat subtle at first because of, as I said, people were just slightly changing direction. But then those that were close were then lunging at me, and then I thought, okay, definitely, there's definitely something going on. And yeah, I've put here, they were very slow moving. I put very similar to a typical sort of zombie movie, where they're just kind of like, kind of slowly working their way. So it's very much like that. But I felt that these ones were not quite as mindless as I've had in other dreams. So I've actually had quite a lot of zombie dreams, and I'm pretty sure I've got the meaning down now as to what that means. And I've also had quite a lot of vampire dreams as well. And again, I think I understand what they mean now and they represent. So what I'll be doing, I'll be linking in quite a few of these videos into the description because there's so many, and a lot of them you'll see my process of understanding. And the process of understanding was way before I had a dream book that breaks down these things. And I mentioned previously actually how, out of curiosity, I just looked up zombie and I looked up vampire, and the meanings were spot on what I thought it was. I say I thought it was. I very much felt like the Holy Spirit revealed that to me, because if I didn't understand this dream really much at all, and then suddenly it was just, this zombie means this, and then it just opened everything up, and I was like, whoa, now I know what that means. Now I know what that means. Now I know what that means. It just opened up the whole thing. Same thing with the zombies, because it was a combined zombie and vampire vampire and zombie dream. So I understood what the relationship was between the vampire and the zombie. So as I said, it opened everything up. So as I said, I will put those in there, but that was just a bit of a diversion there for a second. So back to the dream. So there was what I was noticing, as I was walking through the car park, was I was finding loads of discarded raw meat. So I was seeing things like chicken breast and stuff like that on the floor, on the ground, I should say. Packaging busted open on, like the plastic packaging that it would be in, half-eaten raw meat. It was raw chicken stuff that I was noticing on the floor, which I felt was really bizarre because it was specifically that I was seeing in multiple places. And these, and what I had a sense of was obviously that these zombies were after raw meat, weren't they? Fresh meat. And I'm assuming that was kind of what that was representing, because it was specifically, as I said, chicken breast or raw meat and stuff like that that was discarded. And as some of these zombies were lunging at me, I was trying to sort of communicate with them. As I said, they weren't absolutely mindless, which I have had in other dreams where they're just, like your typical zombies that just go after you. They don't seem to have a plan or anything like that. Which, interestingly, if you see some of the films, like the Walking Dead series, the zombies at the very beginning are actually quite intelligent in that they're able to sort of like mess with handles and stuff like that, so they can get in places. You'll see that they get more, they're more intelligent at the beginning, and then the longer and longer it goes on, the more and more mindless they are. And I haven't mentioned this before, in any of the videos actually before, but that is actually something I saw about Walking Dead, and they said, that was very intentional. If you were to as a body is breaking down, that say, they become more and more putrid, they're more and more easier to kill and stuff like that, and they're more and more mindless. Okay, so that's basically what I'm sort of saying, is that this was early stage. If I'm, because I do make that connection actually in one of my other videos, is how you've got like the early stage zombies and then you've got the latter stage zombies, and they act slightly different. Okay, so that's what I'm getting a sense of here. These are slightly more early stage. Some of them were lunging at me. I was trying to actually distract them, and I was doing it in a really bizarre way. I was discussing raw meat recipes with them. Very bizarre. I was sort of saying, well, stuff like, what you should do really is add some lemon to it, add some herbs to it, something like that, just make it a bit more interesting, rather than just this raw meat. Very bizarre conversation. I don't really understand what the meaning of that is necessarily. But it was actually the case that the government were pushing these sort of like mixed recipes, let's say, to the general public. Very bizarre, about eating raw meat and this zombie connection. Not quite sure what that means. I recorded this dream due to obviously the zombie element, given that I've had lots of zombie dreams before, and I associate meaning with it. So I go. I'm sorry. I'm just going to check to see if I go through separate thoughts here, or whether I'm actually going through the thoughts right now. I think I am going through the thoughts here. Yes, it looks like it. Okay. I normally write thoughts, you see, and then I know where I'm going. Right. So my thoughts was these zombies, and I've mentioned this, as I said, on previous dreams, is that the zombie represents somebody who's unsaved, who is a non-believer. Okay, and because what I say is that they're the dead, aren't they? So they're an unbeliever, and again, I know this sounds quite harsh, is technically dead. They're like a dead man walking, really, because they're going to be judged, and they have sinned. Therefore, the punishment is death. Yes, they're alive right now and they're walking around, but they're really dead, and they're just awaiting. They're awaiting actual death, and then the judgment will come after that. Okay, so that's what I mean by an unbeliever. A vampire, though, in the other dreams, is one that is kind of like high up in the hierarchy, very, very high up in the hierarchy, and they were the intelligence behind what was going on. So in the dream book, it mentions they're a principality. So like the highest level of hierarchy that say there is in the demonic realm, the ones orchestrating, coordinating things. Okay, so that's what I felt like it meant. Was the zombies were representing the non-believers, the unsaved. Okay. Those dead already, yeah. And I'll go through the scripture in a moment, but I want to take this a little bit further. So, what were the other elements I mentioned? Yeah, that they were changing direction, weren't they? And they were coming at me. Actually I haven't prepped for this actually. So, it actually made me think of, in the end times, how actually those that the beast, let's say, sort of stokes up hatred for the Jews and the Christians, and comes after them. And so I kind of make that connection as well, that the zombies are, in this instance, I actually associated that with the mindless ones, the ones that are literally following orders. They're just doing what they're told, really. Them as more of these kind of ones that are end stage ones that are, as I said, going after people. But this felt like this was early stage. If you see what I mean by it, I went into the supermarket, everything was normal, came out, and something's changed, and now they're coming after me. It's almost like an order had gone out as to, right, we rounded up all the Christians and the Jews. We're gonna kill them, basically. Yeah. So that's basically what that was talking about. I think that's what it's representing to a certain extent, is that kind of end times thing, where there's the instruction to go and collect everybody up, that sort of thing. Okay, Transparency. Yes, I'm going to go through a little bit of transparency here as to why I might have had an actual zombie dream. Well, I was actually at an arcade the day before, and like the kids, that we were with were considering playing on a zombie game, and it was actually The Walking Dead, as it goes. And they wanted to have a bit of a play on it. But obviously, it's a bit of a scary one, and they decided against it. But it did also make me think about that maybe that had affected it. But also, I put here, I wanted to link in the fact that there's another supermarket aspect of this dream. So obviously, this dream's talk about supermarket, and I'm going to get my shop and stuff like that. Now, I've had another one where it's again, I don't know what that one's called. I will find it, but it's basically like the starting up of the beast system, and I'm in a supermarket, and there's this weird spirit, demonic being that's looking around and making sure we're complying and stuff like that. That's a really fascinating one there, and that goes into a lot of the detail actually around Mark of the Beast and stuff like that. So the what's it called? The fact that you won't be able to buy and sell and stuff like that if you don't take the Mark of the Beast. But it was all set in a supermarket, okay, and so that's where I was kind of making that sort of transition, let's say now, into Mark of the Beast from there. But I'm just going to quickly go through some scripture first, which talks about this concept of that you're already dead. You're dead. You're dead in your sins. So that's actually Ephesians 2, verses 1 to 5 is what I'm going to cover off. Okay, so this is titled in the Bible anyway as "Made Alive in Christ." Well, it says in my one anyway. Just before going into number 2. So as for you, you were dead in your transgressions and sins, in which you used to live when you followed the ways of this world and of the ruler of the kingdom of the air, the Spirit who is now at work in those who are disobedient. All of us also lived among them at one time, gratifying the cravings of our flesh and following its desires and thoughts. Like the rest, we were by nature deserving of wrath. But because of his great love for us, God, who is rich in mercy, made us alive with Christ, even when we were dead in our transgressions. It is by grace that you have been saved. So there's a lot of elements there, wasn't it? Talking about cravings of the flesh, which you've got these guys going on, these zombies, going after the flesh, craving the flesh, let's say. And it talks about there the ruler of the kingdom of the air is basically Satan. He's referred to as that in multiple different places, but that's describing a title. A title, let's say, ruler of the kingdom of the air. Okay, I'm going to move into the next stream actually now. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to cover off on that. No. Okay, so I'm going to go into the revelations I had really on Mark of the Beast. So again, watch the videos I've put together for Mark of the Beast. It's called Mark of the Beast / Suffering Servant. It's really interesting. It goes through a lot of the symbology of colours as well. I realise that there's connections between certain elements there. These are all in season 1, by the way. So season 1 for both of the ones that I've mentioned so far. There will be some others. There's another one which is called Zombie Apocalypse, which is where I go through that kind of realization of what zombies and vampires mean. That's probably a really, really good one for that. Again, I'll put these together for you. So this one, around 14th of October, 2025, is where I get this realization around the Mark of the Beast, a bit more so. So I did, I'm going to show you an image in a moment. I'm just going to quickly flip it around and show you what I looked up. But I had this feeling, again, if you were to look at Mark of the Beast, you'll see I mentioned the sign of Omega, which is kind of like straight, like two little dashes and then going up and over. Yeah, like that. So Hopefully, I've just about done that. Now, I saw a mark on somebody's hand, and it looked very similar to the omega sign, except slightly adjusted. Okay, in that rather than those flat edges, they were just pointed up at angles. So like 45 degrees, let's say, very, very roughly, rather than flat. But other than that, it looked very similar to an omega sign. Very, very similar. And the realization I got really was I was looking up, I can't remember how I came about doing this actually, but I thought about omega, and I did also mention that there was this triangle that was inside this omega sign. And I realized actually when I did that video, I put the triangle upside down. I don't know why I did that. I actually put the triangle as sort of like point down when it should have been actually point up, is how I saw it. But for some reason, I put it the opposite way around. And so I kind of wanted to correct that as well at the same time, because obviously I'm talking about it in my video, and I'm kind of somewhat talking about it different to how I actually remember seeing it, which was kind of frustrating. But I'm going to show you again what I saw. And I'm going to talk you through something else as well. So let's just quickly do this. I'm just going to flip this around. So hopefully this will work okay. And then I'm going to show you also what I saw on that film I mentioned called End of Days, which is an Arnold Schwarzenegger one. Okay, but I'm just going to pause it. Okay, there you go. There you go. So if you can see that top symbol at the very, very top there. So this is both alpha and omega signs that are kind of put over the top of each other and what they look like. Okay. Now, I can't remember why I was looking this up, but I was just realizing how incredibly close it is. That triangle and that line across that I sort of saw on the Mark of the Beast one matches up very, very close to an A, as it's shown in that particular alpha and omega symbol that I saw online. I just basically just quickly Googled images, alpha and omega, and that particular one came up. So I just drew it on here. But you'll see the bottom one, that is actually what I saw. So the only major difference I would have said is the line of the A doesn't go down and match the feet, let's say, of the alpha. But other than that, very, very, very close. Okay, now I'm going to pause it and I'm going to show you the symbol now of what it looked like in that film, End of Days. Okay, so this is the film then, and the End of Days thing. So that's basically that's the arm that it zooms in on this baby that gets born. Now, how close is that to what I saw? Okay, how incredibly close is that symbol? I'm just going to pause it again because it's wobbling all over the place. Yeah, so hopefully you can see where I'm coming from there. So again, check that film out if you want to. Obviously, it's got a lot of demonic sort of stuff in it, but it's not like really a horror film. But I mentioned in that, video called Mark of the Beast, how there was other elements of that film which came into play in that dream as well, which was really strange. As I said, I can't emphasize enough how long ago it was since I've seen that film. Incredibly long time ago. You know, as I said, at least 10 years, probably closer. Yeah, at least 10 years ago since I'd seen it. And I was going to just literally cite some scriptures to do with the Mark of the Beast. Okay. So I'm just going to, as I said, literally cite them. So you've got Revelation 13, verses 15 to 18, talks of the, like the famous 666, and being the mark of the beast, and how it restricts you being able to buy and sell, like I've already mentioned. You've got Revelation 14, verses 9 to 11, talks about the judgment for those who worship the beast and receive the mark. You've got Revelation 15:2, which mentions those victorious over the beast and its image and its mark. Revelation 16, verses 2, talks about the first bowl of wrath that's poured out on those with the mark of the beast. And you've got Revelation 19:20, which describes the false, describes the fate of the beast and the false prophet who deceived those into taking the mark. Okay, so there is going to be a deception element to taking the mark. Okay, I won't elaborate too much on that. Revelation 20 verses 4, which describes the resurrection of those who did not have the mark and did not worship the beast. Okay, so as I said, I was just going to cite those ones, and I was going to do something very similar actually with this one. So there is some other bits outside of Revelation that give similar what's the word? Similar concepts around the mark of the beast, that kind of stuff. So where's it gone? So it's a very interesting part is the mark of the wicked and the mark of the righteous, which is in Ezekiel 9 verses 4 to 6. And I've got here Psalms of Solomon are verses 15. Sorry, Psalms of Solomon 15 verses 6 to 9, talking of signs only visible to God and his angels. I put, however, at this time, the Jewish people would remember a mark they took. Oh, okay, yes. So what I'm saying, sorry, I realise where I'm going with this then, is because of mark of the beast is kind of like this, again, this mark that you take so that you're able to basically be a part of society, okay? But the Jewish people would be, back then when Revelation was written, which is around about 90 AD, somewhere around that sort of region is thought to be when it was written by John, the disciple John, who wrote John. So is that they would actually be aware of the fact that there was a mark of there was a mark that they took as a people before. Again, and I thought this might be something that's interesting to people that didn't realise this has actually happened before in history. So, however, let's read this bit again. So, however, at this time, the Jewish people would remember a mark that they took or was forced upon them. Then, when they were slaves in Egypt, they were actually branded, okay, with an ivy leaf, which was a symbol of Dionysus. Okay, now. If you look at the actual, I only wrote this down way after the dream I had. But what happens in my one is it is actually a brand. So the person who has that symbol that I've just shown you is actually, you can see that it's scar tissue on their hand, that it's been burnt on their hand as a mark. It's like a cattle brand, literally like a cattle brand is what it was like, which, yeah, it makes you think of a sort of a slave sort of thing, I suppose, doesn't it? Or like a punishment, really. People who are like robbers and stuff like that would get a brand, wouldn't they? So you would know, you can't get rid of this. There's no way of getting rid of this unless you cut your skin off. But pretty brutal way of doing it, of getting rid of it. Oh, sorry, obviously I'm not talking about the mark of the beast there, but I'm just talking about that, getting rid of a brand. I think that's where I wanted to take it. That's where literally I wanted to finish with that. So hopefully you found that interesting. As I said, this is kind of like a bookmark as well for the mark of the beast and all these different ones around zombies and all of that kind of element. So I'm going to kind of go through my back catalogue, let's say, of all the different sort of videos I've put together, which will all be season 1, I would imagine. And I'll put them all together in the description, and I'll cite these scriptures I've just talked about. Obviously, I only read out one, which was the Ephesians one, wasn't it? I think it was Ephesians. Yeah, but you'll see that I'll write that down as well, so you can just check that out. I think that's it. Yeah, that'll do for this one. I've just been starting to write out actually all those little bits of a dream, all the various different dreams I don't have at the moment. I'm trying to put them together, catalogue them all. So now that I can think, where am I going to go next? Where can I see some connections? As I said, the connection here was obviously the supermarket from the surgery one, and then from this one, then talking about Mark of the Beast and the supermarket transition there. So where do we go from Mark of the Beast? It may well be somewhere completely random. Yeah. At the moment, I'm not sure. I've got to go through a couple of different books, but I have noticed actually one last night. I thought, is there any dreams I've had recently that I haven't yet logged into my dream journal? There was one, and it does actually match very, very closely with another one. So I think that might, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's where I'm going to go next. Which, yeah, I'm not sure quite how to put that one together, but I will, because I need to get that in my book first. But that's what I'll probably do next. Okay. Hopefully you found that all interesting. We'll move on to the next one. I've got a feeling where I'm going to go with this. It's going to be one that's got a UFO in it, and a kind of rapture sort of element as well. But yeah, I think that's where we're going to go next, is those two dreams. I'm going to pair them up together. Right, that's it for now. All right, see you on the next one.